Hi everyone, welcome back to the Yuumiverse podcast. Today I have a very special guest here, Krystalbella. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Krystalbella. I am a World of Warcraft streamer. I play Resto Shaman.
Very cool. And the very tradition that I always ask all my guests is, how did you get into WoW from the very beginning?
From the very beginning, I actually used to be an avid Perfect World International player. I loved it so much, and I swore I would never pay a subscription to play a game. But then about 2 months into dating my now husband, he's like, "No, you have to
Hmm.
come play World of Warcraft." And yeah, that's what we did. Played World of Warcraft together.
Nice. I can relate to that because I never touched a single MMO until my now husband got me into WoW Classic. That's
Right.
pretty much how I got into it as well. So what expansion did you start?
It was, Mists of Pandaria, the very end. It was, like, the spring before WoD came out.
Hmm.
So yeah, the end of Mists of Pandaria, and we were just leveling, so I really didn't even get to experience MoP at all,
Oh, okay.
as it was.
Did you do any raiding at all, or just any like in-game content?
Yeah, so we mostly did, like, leveling and, like, mild dungeons and stuff, and then once, the new expansion came out, my brother was like, "Hey, we need a healer in our guild," and so we went, what was that? I think WoD came after, um, Pandaria, and so then, I boosted a Mistweaver monk on their server, and we started raiding with them a little bit, doing just, like, normal raid and heroic raid.
That's really cool. Were you
Yeah.
playing the entire time, like throughout all the expansions up until now?
I think I've taken like 6 month to year long breaks, but otherwise, yeah, I was pretty casual up until the end of Shadowland. No, the beginning of Shadowlands.
Okay.
Mm,
And
I'm
then
forgetting the
no,
expansion names
that's
now.
it's all good. It's all good. That's why we're talking about it. Um and also, have you always been a healer main pretty much?
Yeah, I've always been, even in Perfect World, I was a healer main. I did a little bit of tanking. I really enjoyed druid tanking throughout the years, but it's been mostly healer.
That's really cool. And then what got you into resto shaman?
So um the end of, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name. I just remembered a tall Dazar being my first, like, major Resto
BFA?
Shaman dungeon. Yes, BFA, thank you. Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, so I just, was playing different healers, and I just wanted to try out, Shaman for the first time at the
Hmm.
end of BFA, and we went into, it was my first time, like, kinda going into a 15, and it did not go well at all, but it was fun. Um, and I just fell in love with Resto Shaman at that point. I was just like, this feels like the character I want to play.
Okay, and that's really interesting, and I'm kind of curious because Wrestle Shaman now is like a little different from before. So I was wondering like what your thoughts are on totemic Wrestle Shaman currently.
I when I they first announced that they were gonna do that totemic and have it like more totem based and everything, I was so excited. I was like, I
Hmm.
love that. I definitely was more excited for totemic than I was Farseer. So then when totemic became like the superior spec, I was even more excited about that because I was like, yeah. Um, but I was really looking forward to it. I was hoping for Vesper Totem back, like a lot of us were, I think, but
That's really interesting because I also talked to Rain and he said he prefers Farseer as like an OG Wrestle Shaman player because he's more used to like the playstyle of Farseer. So that's really cool that you think totemic is more fun.
yeah, well, Rain also likes to hit a lot of buttons really fast, and I like to play a little bit slower, and I think that
Okay.
totemic is a bit of a slower gameplay than Farseer.
Have you played like other healers recently or just shaman?
My Mistweaver is currently 2969 IO, so I've been playing her a bit, and then I've gotten into Disc Priest that I've never really played before. Dabbled in it a little bit last expansion, but never really played it. So The disc priest is around 2,800 now.
Oh, that's very cool. So you went over kind of like how it's like a more slower playstyle for resto shaman. Would you recommend resto shaman to someone who's new to healing, and would like what class would you recommend?
So resto shaman, I think I would because it's pretty straightforward. The heals are just, pretty thorough put heals. There's just a lot of buttons, but I feel like that's the case for most of the healers.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's straightforward healing, which is nice. It's pretty easy, I think.
Yeah, when I play resto shaman, I feel so much more chill, and I wish it was meta for longer than a couple months last season. Unfortunately, I'm an FOTM reroller, but like it was really fun playing resto shaman and just feels really chill. Have you played Disc Race
I,
this season?
this season, yeah, I really wanted. Last season, I really enjoyed Void Weaver. So I was looking forward to that. But I did the flavor of the month for Disc Priest.
Yeah,
And I've been enjoying that too.
that's really cool.
Not as much.
And I've been wanting to ask, so how did you get into M plus?
Um, we did the like challenge dungeons back in Legion.
Hmm.
As like friends, and I gotta be honest, we sucked. We were so bad. But it was just fun. We just really had fun going through the dungeons and taking much longer than we should have, doing higher difficulties and stuff than we should have. But we just kind of our friends were like, let's do this a little bit. And so then we got into it and I started playing with different people, meeting like more pugs and stuff and just it was a lot of fun. Um, so it just became a thing.
Have you been pugging like a lot recently or throughout your journey, or
Yeah, so I have a mixture of a team that I play with and I pug. I like to um I used to mainly pug until I got into the team that I'm in now. But even now, all of my I pug it without them.
oh,
So I
interesting.
pug more than I play with a group.
Which one do you prefer more?
um, I think that's I love them both, honestly. It's really nice having that group and being able to do those homework keys and improve together, and it's a lot of fun to like have that progress. But you also get to meet a lot of really cool people pugging. And a lot of not so cool people too. But you do get to meet a lot of cool people pugging and
Yeah,
you get to see the different routes and if something goes wrong and somebody's having a bad day or whatever, you can just leave the pug group. Whereas like if you're just having a bad day with your like group, you're like, okay, well, we're gonna tough it out together this time.
that happened to us
So-
today. Yeah, we were progging Cinderbrew 19 for like 4 hours. We've already timed the key, but we were trying a new route because with the current like route we have, we're not gonna time a 20. So we were trying the new route and things were just really rough, and like halfway through I think we were just wiping to like old pulls that we should have already progged and then I think it was like an hour or something before we completed the key. So it was like kind of awkward. We're kind of like, should we take a break? But then we only have this amount of time to play the game. So yeah, we just kind of kept going. But luckily, we came back, sent another Cinder Brew, and then timed that, and the morale came back. But I definitely relate to where you're coming from. Like, if you have a bad day with a pug, you can kind of just brush it off. And then, but with a group, you kind of just have to either deal with it or um, kind of just get through it. So yeah, it definitely happened to me just today. That was really interesting. Okay, so I haven't really been watching your stream recently. I will admit you stream kind of late, and I try to like go to bed now earlier. So I was just wondering how your current progress is in M plus.
Yeah, I'm one key away from resilient 16s that I have my first 17 timed.
Really cool.
I only really play the 2 to 3 days a week, so I've got a limited time to be pushing. But it's nice. It's going good.
Very nice. And the reason why I brought you on to this podcast is because I always talk to people that are like either higher than me or always like title and like rank 1 and always pushing like those higher keys. And I kind of just want to hear from someone who isn't like always playing all the time and only plays like 2-3 days a week. And um I was just wondering like what your goals are for M plus normally, like for every season.
Uh, of course, I always aspire to try to go for title, but I know that going for those higher levels require you to commit or to make priority of that. And I don't think I prioritize enough because I could, potentially drop my friends and be like, I'm going to be specifically like pushing for title. Like that's the only thing I'm going to dedicate my time to. But also sitting in queue at my awkward hours for hours on end doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
So my biggest goal each season is just to improve, just to do better than I did the season before,
And
whether
it
it's on
seems
new
like you are.
healers or my healer. Yeah.
That's really cool. Um, and then what happens? Like, have you ever gone to a situation where you're not meeting your goals and you're like kind of struggling to meet them?
I would say so. Maybe I think Dragonflight season 3 might have been a good example where um like we were trying to get into like 28s and 29s and everything, and I was finding myself often getting stuck like feeling like the 27s and stuff. And sometimes it was like definitely my fault as like the healer, not being able to meet those healing checks, or just the pugs, or even my friend group that I was with, we were just like having that harder time.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because Dragonflight season 3 is when I started to play, and when I was pugging, like it was really hard to tell if it was my fault or not, especially if like you don't have as much knowledge. And at the time, like I don't know if I was just dealing with toxic pugs, but some people were just like blaming me for not healing if they died. And at the time, like I didn't really know anything about like using defensives, planning it, and I just assumed like you're supposed to heal through everything raw, and that was just really hard for me. But I use VOD reviewing to try and improve myself because, like, when I was playing, I couldn't really tell if I was making mistakes. But then after reviewing the VOD, I realized, okay, yeah, I should have done this, I should have done that, or sometimes it wasn't even my fault. But yeah, I was wondering how you improve your own gameplay.
I started looking at my logs and then the logs of better than me shamans. I would go into like the top 5 to 10 shamans, and I'd look at their logs compared to mine for like that dungeon, and like the general level. I would also look at some of my clips and stuff if I was streaming during it, and see if it was something like, oh, could that have been avoided? Um, Started tracking everybody else's cooldowns so that I can see like whether or not they could help save themselves if I needed to use the bigger cooldowns. Um, and started forgiving myself when it wasn't my fault, I think was a
Yeah,
big thing. That helped take a lot of stress off of it. Like, oh, okay, so it wasn't my fault. I can fix what was my fault.
that's very insightful, and I think a lot of people need to realize that sometimes it's just not really your fault. Like as a healer, you're just picking up scraps. If other people are like, if your DPS are really good, you don't have to heal as much. If your DPS suck, you gotta heal more, and it's just really hard to tell. Like I get people asking, "Oh, how much HPS are you doing on this boss?" And it really kind of depends, right? Like sometimes you gotta do more, sometimes it's less. We were progging Candle King the other day, and that was really hard for Disc Priest, but we missed a clone. So there was a clone that didn't get cleared on like a 2020 or 21, and it was rough for me. But I'm really lucky that I have people to play with now that just don't immediately blame me for when things like that happen because I'm already frustrated. And yeah, it's just really hard to find a group of people like that, especially if you're pugging as a healer. Um, do you have any like of your own experiences where people were like blaming you and stuff in pugs?
I mean, all the time. This just kind of
Oh,
comes with the joy of pugging, of people being like inexperienced themselves, or not knowing like there's plenty of times where people are like, "You didn't heal that." And I'm like, "If you didn't, like, have the insight to react fast enough, you can't always expect me to also have the insight to react fast enough. Because like, if you go down with every single one of your cooldowns up, like, that's just as on you as it is me, sometimes, or, like, if I have nothing, there's plenty of times where, like, I'll call even in my own personal group, actually, good antidote here, when we're progging, that first pull of Priory, was a hard one for us for a while, and I'd be like, "I'm using my spirit link," and then about 15 seconds, 20 seconds later, my tank is like, "Use spirit link," and I'm like, "I've already used it," and then we wipe because he was anticipating using it for, like, himself there, and I'm like, "Okay, but this can't just be my fault because I called it." Um, and so that's a big communication thing right there, I think.
Do you normally call defensives in your group when you play?
I've been trying to get better. I'm just so in the pug habit that I don't. I'm used to just like watching theirs, but I think that they're also like my personal group. I think that they're kind of used to being healed through a lot of the stuff that as we're getting into those higher keys, they kind of take it for granted. And I'm just starting to learn that I have to start calling those more.
Yep, exactly. Story of my life too. I guess some things are just universal at every key level, pretty much. Um,
Yeah.
okay, and then since you play Resto Shaman, and you don't really have like any externals, you said like your tank asked for a Spirit Link, right? How do you normally deal
hmm
with like helping out the tank as a shaman?
Um, I find that a lot of the tanks right now are pretty self-sustainable, and I typically don't have to like baby them too much, but I will tanky sit, with those good healing surges. Um, you get that like little beefed up Riptide kind of helps a little bit for the tanks. And then yeah, Spirit Link, if I know that there's gonna be like a big tank buster or something, I try to save Spirit Link for it. Unless it's like a pool with big AoE that Spirit Link's gonna be available. Definitely learning the damage of the tank busters makes that huge difference of being prepared to babysit the tank a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one thing like I don't really get about Resto Shaman. I'm so used to like when I play Priest, I'm so used to like, oh, I have paints up for you. I have paints up for you now again. And then when I'm playing Shaman, it's just like, well, I guess I can give you some HP and then keep Earth Shield on you. I was playing with Quasi for a bit last season on Resto Shaman before I swapped to Priest. And it was right when Prop Paladin became meta, but Priest wasn't really up there yet. Um, and I remember him calling like, "I need Spirit Link. Okay, now what? I need Earth LE, I guess." And then that was just after that, I was just like spam healing him. And I'm sure you know last season it was like really rough on tanks as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been meaning to ask. That just made me think of it. So you were playing Wrestle Shaman last season as well, right?
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
did you feel about the dungeons last season? Just
I
curious.
did not enjoy them that much. I really felt I don't know. I couldn't tell half the time if I was playing bad or if it was just harder.
It was definitely hard. Um, and then were you pugging a lot last season, or were you also playing with a group?
Yeah. I'm kind of last season. Last season I was playing with the group. I was also pugging a lot. But I didn't get like I've gotten much farther this season. I think we all have, right? But um I think just like life in general had me not playing nearly as much as I wanted to play. So I don't even remember what keys I got up to last season. It wasn't very high, but
Yeah, I think last season the pug scene was really dead as well. I don't know if you
mhm,
noticed. But yeah, like pretty much whenever my group wasn't playing, and I had a period of time where I didn't have a group to play with, that was really rough because LFG was pretty much just dead, especially tanks. Like all the tanks just quit just because, I mean, I don't blame
couldn't
them.
blame them.
Yeah, exactly. um, but yeah, so when did you meet your current group that you're playing with?
Shadowlands. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because we had Vesper Totem.
Oh,
when
wow.
we had Vesper Totem. I met them because they're also streamers, and one of them, Lord Trud, had just like randomly raided me. Like we'd never heard of each other, and he had raided in to my channel, and um, so then of course like I followed him, and that's how I got to know him and Hydrax and all them. And um, we started playing a little bit, and at the time, Shred was also a resto shaman. So I kind of like forced him into TPS so that I could play with them. They ended up having a need for an extra person, so he ended up going DPS so I could be their healer.
Very nice of them. Yeah,
I think
I'm
it was
also
nice of
trying
me.
to. Oh, there. Yeah, there you go. You offered yourself your fifth spot. There you go. I mean, they wouldn't have done it if they didn't want to play with you, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So you said you only play like around 2 to 3 days a week, right?
Mhm.
So how do you schedule with your group? Is everyone's like schedule aligned?
So they've all kind of got their base schedule, and it's mostly based off of our tank Hydrax. He has his job and his kids and everything, and so there's a certain time that like he's able to get on. So like that's the time that we all align around is his schedule. Which is really it gets hard because like they're in Australia. So then I'm playing on their OCE ping and stuff too. Which is
Oof.
really fun healing these higher dungeons at 250 ms. Um, so he'll get on, but when we get to like the like time zones, not time zones, like the daylight savings and stuff, ours are opposite. So we end up with like a 2-hour gap either way, come like fall and spring, which is hard. So I just make my schedule and I pretty much just pug until they get on and then we play. And then when they all get off after about 3 hours, if I still feel like playing, I'll pug some more. And then otherwise, I'll just end for the day.
Oh my goodness. That sounds very interesting. So does that mean your sleep schedule is like backwards?
Yeah, so I work night shift actually.
Oh, okay.
I work 50 hours a week overnight, Monday through Friday.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why I don't play as much as I'd like to. Of course, I'm sure all of us would like to just be able to game more.
Of course.
Um, so I play those like weekend. I don't flip my schedule during the weekend, because that would just be chaos.
Yeah,
So which is
that makes
fun.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're pretty much like the only people I know that play around that time and aren't on OCE. And that's also like how we met because I think either you rated me once or I rated you. I don't remember. Might have been you rating
You were
me.
playing with Rain, right?
Yeah, it was also D10 hours. I've been trying to
Yeah.
like get away from that, but I can't. I don't know why. I just always sleep late, even if I get off the game. I always just stay up watching videos or doing stuff. I just feel more productive at night. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get back into streaming around like late hours. Who knows? But that's really interesting. So now I want to hear more about your streaming journey because I think a lot of like small like WoW content creators would probably like to know more like how you got into streaming and what kind of content you do and what you find that has to be working or not working.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty impressionable. I got into streaming because the group of friends that we were doing really horrible dungeons with back in the day, um we were just there to have fun, and one day one of them says, "Hey, we should all start streaming and make a stream team and become famous together." And we were like, this is 2017, so streaming was in a good place, kind of taking off and everything, and we said, "Oh, well, not 2017, 2019. 19, 18, around there, before COVID." And we were like, yeah, okay. So I'm the type of person that if I'm gonna take on a hobby, I go all in. I went and bought the cameras and I got all the stuff. Like, God, you don't want to see how much yarn I have when it comes to like thinking that I'm gonna take over a hobby. Um, and and then I think all of us hit go live one time, and that was it for them. They just all didn't go live again. And I was like, this is pretty fun. Like I met some new people, a couple new people came in. And I knew nothing. I didn't even know what Twitch was when he said let's try streaming. I had no idea about live streaming or anything. This was all brand new to me. had my head in the sand up until that moment. I fell into one of those like follow for follow communities because I didn't know better. Got my affiliate like within the first month. Um, and um then realized like how much drama this community was. After a couple months, I quit streaming altogether. I was like, streaming's just drama. Stopped streaming for well over a year up until October 2020. Um, when we'd been working from home for a while, and I was like, all right, I want to start socializing again. And I think that that's really the start of my like streaming career hobby. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
My streaming life was at that point, that's when I started anew and everything. And it took a while to find out like what really resonated best with me, what resonated best with the type of community I wanted to surround myself with. Um, I played like Dead by Daylight. I variety streamed for a long time. And then it was a mix between variety streaming and doing like some keys in World of Warcraft. And I really couldn't figure out like why I wasn't growing and what I can do. Like I was like, all right, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I do want to go further with this. And so about like 2 years ago, I want to say, I quit the variety streaming and I started playing with my schedule because I was streaming too much. I was tired. I've been working the schedule, for years, and it is hard to have anything going on in your life and maintain that streaming schedule. You have to be kind of forgiving on yourself. So it took a couple of years to kind of get into a schedule that fit me, and do the type of gameplay that fit the type of community that I wanted to be surrounded by. Um, and that's when I started seeing growth, was when I got like that consistent schedule and that consistent gameplay. Because as much as I love World of Warcraft and I love the World of Warcraft viewers, they are very, very dedicated to their game, and they very few of them will watch you play other games.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find that growth like if you're using World of Warcraft in variety streaming.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, what did you get stuck at? Like, how many viewers did you have that you would say you were
Uh,
stuck?
yeah, so I think I got stuck around an average of 10 to 15 for a very long time, for, over a year or so. Oops, sorry, I don't know if that made a lot of sound. And it wasn't until I really started to, um, you know, go out there and meet other streamers in their space and everything, and start collabing and get to know the space better and the community, start seeing um like kind of what they're doing and what I'm doing, and seeing, what worked for multiple people and what's working for them and not working for me. um not, I don't want to say like, because it's not stealing ideas, and nothing's really original on Twitch anymore.
Yeah,
Everything's been done.
true.
But people who have these, 100, 200 viewers, they kind of see what resonates with the community. They have something going on, and I started watching different people, collectors and Mythic Plus pushers. I watch both people like Rain, who has been succeeding in high keys, and people like Provost, who is succeeding in doing viewer keys, and trying to figure out like what I want to do, and seeing, and I wanted to improve myself. And I think that a lot of people like seeing um, that person who is just trying to improve themselves and willing to call out their mistakes.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. Um, and that's like a lot of work, right? You took years and years of trying to figure it out, and you even took breaks, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of
so
breaks.
yeah, that's
I
really
stopped playing
cool.
WoW for an entire year during the whole thing and only played Dead by Daylight, then completely switched games. And that's when my viewership, every time I swapped games, my viewership would go from averaging up to 20, 30 to back down to averaging 10. And I had to like rebuild that.
I can definitely relate to that because I used to play League of Legends and I tried to stream in that game as well. And I got up to like 30, 40 viewers. And then after I quit League, I stopped streaming for a while, then came back and I was back down to 10 viewers. But yeah, like I definitely relate to that. And I think one thing that you talked about I really want to highlight is your schedule. I think the thing I struggled with the most when I first started streaming, like this was years ago before I even played WoW, but trying to find a schedule that works for you is so important. Like when I was trying to stream every single day, it just didn't work out because I just couldn't keep it up and I couldn't be consistent with it. And then even a couple months ago, like I started streaming WoW and I tried to stream like every night because I was like, I just gotta be consistent. I just gotta be consistent and stream every single day. And I just couldn't keep that up either. So I think it is very, very important to have a schedule that you can keep up at least and be consistent with. And yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And you definitely, I think I'm a good example of you don't have to stream every. I stream 3 days a week, and I just got partner a week and a half ago.
Congrats, by the
Which
way.
is, thank you. So I think it's a good example of you don't have to overexert yourself to hit those goals.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Now I have a question about that because when you decided to stream like only 3 days a week, do you think that affected your viewership at all? Because when I first started like dropping days, I think people would like forget about my stream because I didn't stream for like another 4 days or something.
Yeah, I think that I because I used to stream 4 to 5 days a week, and I wouldn't always like have that consistent schedule. And I found myself so tired that I was canceling a lot of streams
Oh yeah,
between work and trying to, keep a marriage going, which does take a little bit out of
right.
you. Family and all that. I found myself canceling a lot of streams. And I think that that was hurting it more. I think that going down in days kind of made some people more excited because they're like, oh, we've been waiting to watch the stream all week or whatever. And I find that the people who, like, they come around more because it's easier, I think. Especially now with like the watch streaks and stuff, they don't have to like keep it up every day to like keep that watch streak. A couple channels have it. I think it's a beta thing that they haven't officially rolled out.
Oh,
So I got
interesting.
lucky to get that.
That's very cool. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I think the
Okay.
biggest thing
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the biggest thing that hurt was just rearranging my hours. Because I kept changing my hours until I finally was like, all right, 2 a.m. Because I used to go live at like 10 o'clock Saturday night and 10 o'clock Sunday night. And I just felt like my entire weekend, my only days off were just gone to streaming. And it just felt like another full-time job almost. So when I cut down my hours to 2 a.m. was my start time, I lost a lot of people who are, North America especially, that are already in bed at that point.
Yeah, I feel that too because I used to stream really late hours and you late enough for you to raid me, which is really late. And recently I've been streaming like more afternoon to evening because I realized that's when my main team plays, and if I try to stream during my main team hours and then I try to stream again during DGen hours, that's too much. So I'm also trying to find my balance right now. Um, but so how do you like what kind of content do you stream and how do you like decide that? Or is it kind of just like whatever you want to do?
I mainly stream Mythic Plus. That is, I find that like, even last night, I was doing Mythic Plus, I was pugging Mythic Plus, doing 16s and 17s, and even failing, I was maintaining that like certain average. I want to say like around 75, right? And then as soon as I started doing a couple of visions, I noticed I immediately was down in the 60s, like lower 60s. And I was like, all right, I dropped like 10 average viewers just by switching from like Mythic Plus to Visions. And I do a lot of that content off stream, because it feels like even in World of Warcraft, your Mythic Plus viewers are there to watch you do Mythic Plus. You have a lot of people who end up being there for you, but there a lot of them are also there to like watch that certain niche in the game.
Yeah, that makes a
So
lot of sense.
just Mythic Plus all the time.
I noticed last season when I was streaming, like I had like about 50 viewers, and then I would drop down to like 30 or 20 when I was raiding. People didn't want to see raiding content, I guess. So yeah, I definitely feel that. I think the way went around that was to stream on YouTube whenever I was doing like other WoW content, because my YouTube streams, the VODs would be up there for like forever, while the Twitch VODs always eventually get deleted and people don't really care about the VOD page on Twitch. So that's how I went around it. If I still want to stream like other content outside of keys, but I do agree, like it is really hard to get your viewers away from what you normally stream, especially in WoW. So yeah, that's a really big thing. Do you find it fun to only stream Mythic Plus, or do you want to like get away from that in the future?
I think since I don't have a whole lot of time to play, I don't get too burnt out on it. I actually do find it fun. I get that adrenaline rush of getting that key done with pugs and with my group. It's a lot of fun. But I get my IO with pugs, and so when we do get that, it's just so satisfying, and I feel like I can help give my community a positive influence on pugging because I'm always like trying to encourage them, like, look, here's how we're pugging. I'm not taking just meta classes. It's possible. This is how I've done it. And add people. Anytime that you find people that are good vibes and are doing well in the keys, add them, become their friend, ask them to do more keys. And I feel like I'm hoping that I'm helping encourage people to go out and try to have positive pugging experience to like help them, you know, achieve their goals with pugging.
I really like that because people always ask me like, "Oh, how do I do this?" Because I'm always playing with my group because I'm afraid to like stream when I'm pugging, because like I would just be sitting in LFG for a long time, and I don't know if I'm like interesting enough to like entertain the stream while I'm in LFG. Maybe one day I'll find out how to do that. But yeah, people always ask me, how do you pug and still time keys? And I try to tell them, you gotta add people after keys, you gotta do these things, and people just like don't really understand unless you show them. So I really like that you're doing this on stream so that people can really see like it is possible. You can add people after some people might leave, some people you might add and they might not play with you ever again, but eventually you will meet those couple people and that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you also met your current team that you're playing with?
No, we met through Twitch.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. That's I've never
Yeah.
seen people like me through streaming and stuff, so that's really cool. Um, and then another problem I hear from people is that Twitch is really hard to like grow on its own. So when
It
you
is.
were so when you were trying to grow your stream, did you also use other platforms?
Yeah, I found that I don't do enough on YouTube. I give more advice to like posting on YouTube than I take for myself. I do attribute that to like my work schedule and stuff. I just don't dedicate the time outside of like working and streaming. But I do stream on TikTok and putting up like the shorts and the clips and stuff. So I would co-stream at the same time and try and direct traffic from TikTok to Twitch. I also like post on like Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, and then once you get the YouTube like unlocked or whatever, you can like do just regular posts on YouTube. So I do all that too. Constantly, and not just about like going live and stuff, because people aren't gonna just see your going live posts and be like, "Oh, look, a streamer." There you got to kind of give your personality there too. So talking about the dog and talking about, I don't know, the fact, my husband and I were playing, we rebuilt my Game Boy. He put background on it that lights up and stuff, and we've been playing Pokemon on it. So posting about that and stuff and giving all my other platforms personality, I felt helps with bringing that traffic onto Twitch because they're seeing that other places.
Definitely agree with that. And also, you just reminded me of how my husband and I just bought a Switch 2 like a couple days ago when it came out, and we've just been addicted to that game. I really want to stream it, but I know my WoW audience is, or my audience is mostly like into WoW, but I might try streaming it anyway, just because um, I think I want to be more focused on like my YouTube, since Twitch, I don't know if I can be consistent enough. Like you seem like you put in so much work, and you're really busy and you're so dedicated, and that seems really intimidating for anyone who wants to try and streaming like that. So I really applaud you for what you do, and you definitely
It's
deserve.
mostly filled by coffee and my husband.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oh wait, speaking of your husband, do you guys play together? Do you guys play WoW together?
We used to. He quit playing WoW. He has hand problems from a lot of typing and gaming and stuff. So he quit WoW. But we used to play together a lot. We did dungeons and raiding.
Do you miss playing with him?
I do. It's God, here comes the cheese, right? He is my favorite person ever in the world, and I love playing games with him, and I love hanging out with him, and it genuinely bums me out that like we don't get to play and do keys together and stuff because back when we were playing, he really used to be such a good player, and I think that we easily could have been that power couple getting title and stuff together. So I miss that and like the fact that I never got to be as good as I am now with as good as he used to be, like at the same time.
I feel that so much because I got into this game with my husband as well. And then we both started playing. Well, we were playing Classic for 4 years, and we ran a guild together. And then we swapped to retail, and we tried to go for titles together, which we got in past 2 seasons: season 3 Dragonflight and season 4 Dragonflight. And then last season he quit because he's a tank main and just tank things, and he didn't like pugging and all that stuff. And I felt bad because basically what you said, like I just really wanted to play keys with him. Like I didn't care if we didn't get as high or whatever, but like I just wanted to play with him because obviously
Yeah.
favorite person. And then this season I got him to come back, and we're pushing keys together right now, but he's just not enjoying the game as much as I am, which is like really unfortunate because he's probably gonna quit after this season because he thought he would enjoy the game after he came back, and I had to do a lot of convincing as well. But unfortunately, he just doesn't enjoy the game as much as I do, and I really wish he did, but that's just how it is. And I
Yeah.
guess I'm just gonna enjoy my time with him right now because I don't know about you guys, but for us, outside of the game, we talk about it all the time. So like we're always like, oh, remember that key we did? Remember when this happened and this happened? And now we're able to like talk about stuff like that outside of playing. But last season after he quits, it was just mostly me and me telling him, oh yeah, so this happened in our group today. And sometimes he would pop into my stream and like kind of check out what happened. And at least he played at the start of season, so he knew what I was talking about when I was talking about Dawnbreaker or Arakar. Like he would know the dungeons and stuff. But if he were to like not play at all, then like I wouldn't be able to share those conversations with him, and that's fine. Like we still play other games and stuff together, but I would just be losing that part of the experience. So I definitely like see where you're coming from, and it's kind of crazy like how much we relate to each other because I know we haven't really spoken to each other like one on one, but
Right.
we're finding out so many things that we have in common. um,
It's true.
but yeah, so that's like I'm very sad for you, but at the same time I'm so proud of you for like continuing to play, and I'm sure you still
Thank you.
enjoy the game, right? Like you're still having
Oh,
a
I
lot of
love
fun.
it. I actually think, like right now, and I'm gonna bet that at least half the healers are gonna disagree with me. I think healing is almost in a really good place right now, where we're getting a lot of the challenge that we want as a healer, right? Because as a healer, we want to heal and stuff, and we want to be challenged. Now, there are some things like the candle boss that it's needs to be better because that's just too much for a lot of us at the higher levels and stuff. It gets overwhelming really quickly. And I do miss being able to do crazy amounts of damage as a healer. But I feel like it's not in the absolute worst place. It could be better. It's almost in a really good spot, but I'm finding a lot of fun to heal this season. It's almost the right amount of challenging.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. Mostly, I think in Dragonflight season 3, when I first came into retail, that season was outside of like Everbloom and like maybe Eridicron. There was there weren't really too many bosses that required that much healing. It was mostly just like one-shotting, and you needed to just defensive for everything. I remember getting Tainted Rage Heart, Byrex Tainted Rage Heart, which is the trinket that gives you a giant shield. And we had like, I also had a leaf, which is like a smaller shield, and we were just playing around the shields. I was like, Chiji, shield, defensive now, use your personal. And I was mostly just, I still called defensives like that, but the difference is that back then it was less about like healing and more about like living the one shots. And in the War
Yeah.
Within, yeah, they started adding more like rot damage and stuff. So before this expansion, I played in Dragonflight Season 4. I don't know if you remember the dungeon Halls of Infusion.
Oh yeah.
The third boss was like mostly the kind of fight I enjoy playing because it was like mostly rot damage. Obviously, you do need to use defenses and stuff, but it was like a lot to heal. And that was the kind
Mhm.
of fight that I wanted more of. And then I think there was also the last boss of Azure Vault, where they had pulse
Mhm.
damage every time the crystal spawned, and stuff like that. This season, it's like Big Mama, there's Swamp Face, there's Gigazap, there's Candle King,
A
obviously,
lot of the
a
a
lot
lot
of
of the
bosses.
packs, even the
Oh yeah, that
trash
too.
packs, will have that too.
Right. Even the Portal Guardians in Theater of Pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely in a good spot in terms of healing. But I will say that I don't know if you've noticed this, but like a lot of dungeons have like a lot of DPS checks. And recently,
Mhm.
like I've been frogging Cinderbrew, and there's like totems that you need to kill in the IPA room, and I feel like I can't do anything as a healer against it. If the totems go off, I can maybe like heal it up if only like one or two go off, but if all of them go off, it's really hard to heal. But there are stuff like that, which I wish like healers would do more damage in that sense, because tanks do a lot of damage still. Like they do almost
Yeah.
as much as DPS. But healers, we can't really contribute to that as much. I guess it's like I don't know. Maybe some healers enjoy that, some healers don't. I don't really know. I mean, personally, I would want to do more damage as a healer to contribute to the key because I always like try to push high keys and we always run into timer issues and stuff. But I understand
Mhm.
like lower levels. Although I think it's okay for healers to do more damage because it's mostly the healers in higher keys that get affected by that. Like if you're a healer in like a lower key, like a 10 or 12, like you do not need to DPS if you don't want to. So I'm kind of on the fence on like what's the correct way to go about this. But I did hear, I don't know if you've um I don't know when you played. I guess you played way more longer than me, but by the time I started playing, I think healers had already lost most of their damage. Did they used to do more damage back then?
We used to do a lot of damage. I remember multiple things. Even in Dragonflight, we had a lot of like decent damage. Resto shamans. We could put some really good damage in with being able to drop our acid rain and having our oh god, they removed the ability. It's to make two really strong chain lightnings. Guys, it's been so long now,
Like
I forgot the
I
ability.
don't know what you're talking about, but I didn't really play shaman.
And then before that, we had the Vesper totem and stuff. And so we actually used to do a decent amount of damage, maybe not as much um, as damage dealers or tanks, but we were able to feel like we're contributing more. Now it kind of just feels like we're tossing wet rags on the mobs as we're running by them to
Yep.
slow them down. Some.
I remember Brackenhide in Dragonflight, and I was playing Resto Druid, and then on the totems I would like sometimes convoke in cat form to help contribute, and then I also remember using the Bellarillo's trinket, which I could just one shot one totem sometimes, and then did they make it so that certain trinkets are not usable by healers? I don't remember if they did that. They
I
said they
think
were
they either
going
did
to.
that or they nerfed it maybe for healers.
Yeah, that
I don't
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. it could be
I
good or
think
bad.
bad personally, but
Yeah, I don't know, but for me personally, like I wish I was able to contribute more to certain like DPS checks, such as like something as simple as like a totem, like the failed batch in Cinderbrew. If I
Mhm.
could help in any way right now, I'm kind of just penance, smite, shadow word death, hoping for the best, but not really actually able to contribute that much. Um, but I see like my tank always contributing to damage, and I think that's part of the reason why like more people are playing tanks now. Because everyone wants to do damage. Like,
Yeah.
there's not that many people like that want to heal because healers are boring to people who don't like healing. Like, it's like a very specific type of playstyle, and if you don't
Mhm.
like that kind of playstyle, you're just not going to like healing. So
Yeah.
there's also that. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence on that one. But speaking of which, how do you feel about the current season dungeons?
Um, I I hated them for a while at first.
Okay.
I didn't. I was like, "Oh, this kind of sucks." Like I dreaded like Priory and stuff. But I actually really enjoy them after I've gotten to kind of actually get to know the dungeons and figure out like as a healer where like the damage is actually coming out and stuff. That's something that took me a while to improve on is actually getting to memorize the various mob packs and which ones do specific types of damage, and learning to watch for the like watch their casts and stuff. But after kind of figuring that out and getting like better at the dungeons, I like them. I think they're all fun. I think for the most part, theater pain's easy, but it feels really long. Then you have like the Rookery and Priory are both fairly fast dungeons, which is nice. You're not like spending 45 minutes per dungeon. I'm genuinely enjoying the season
That's really nice.
dungeons.
I think overall, like, I also think the season is really good so far. Um, I think one of the concerns I had when I was playing on the PTR was they were really hard. Like, they were overtuned, and a lot of the bosses just did way too much damage. But I think they balanced it out really well this season by making all the key levels scale lower. Like for example, last season going from 11 to 12 was like a huge jump, and that was
Mhm.
really not good for Mythic Plus. Like it's supposed to be a scaling mode where you can go one level up at a time. But that was really bad, and I think it like demoralized the game for like a lot of people. They just couldn't handle having to prog 12s so early in the season and not getting anywhere. But I really think that they did a really good job of making every key level scale at a more reasonable rate. And then the resilient keys helps for like people who pug a lot, because I'm seeing like way more keys in LFG now because people are just
Mhm.
trying to push up their homework keys. Obviously, there are people who are selling them, but at the same time, like I think the amount that's negative is not really as like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like it kind of like balances out for the better. I think
Yeah.
it like benefits people more than it not benefits. I can't word right now, but you know what I'm
No,
talking about
I
it. Um,
yeah.
because I remember like, so whenever we don't have all five of us together, because and we don't really play too much this season. I think it's because like a mixture of my husband just doesn't want to play as much, and we're also doing a lot more like IRL stuff, and people need a raid and people need to work during the weekdays. But whenever we have like four people on and we just need to push a homework key up, we're able to do that now without like feeling like we might risk the key bricking below a certain level. If we have it on resil, it's really nice. We were able to learn new routes and stuff. Like today in the 19th Cinebrew, even though we've already timed it and we have resil, we're able to like learn a new route without having to throw away like multiple keys in a row. So that's really nice. I'm curious to think. I'm curious to see how you feel about resil keys so far.
I agree with you. I love them. I think that anybody using the fact that people sell them as an excuse like not to have them is in the wrong. I completely disagree. because it definitely the benefits outweigh that. Like you're going to have people selling keys either way. I don't think that that small population should have the effect on the majority of making them more friendly. And you are able to get into those keys, last season with the scaling being so hard, jumping into dungeons, 11s to 12s to 13s, we were finding ourselves, trying to do our 13s as in my actual group, trying to do our 13s, and we'd, break them down to a 12, and sometimes something would happen, tragically, whatever in the 12, because accidents happen, mistakes happen, and we'd end up with 11s, and then we're sitting here like, well, now we got to push the keys up 2 levels to get to where we need to be pushing. And so it feels a lot better to only have to go through and push up our keys once to get to the levels that we need as opposed to multiple levels.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. I definitely agree with that. And I think last season there were a couple times where we tried to like push up a homework key while our fifth wasn't there, and it would brick, and then we would like basically we were trying to save time, right? Because we're trying to have all the IO keys ready for when we have a group, but we ended up wasting time because the key
yeah,
bricked. So now it's like if we have extra time, we can play more, and then people who don't have extra time, they get to still benefit by like having to do less homework keys. Obviously, like we want to be able to play as much as possible, but the reality is like a normal person playing this game is not going to have like 24/7 available to play. So overall, like I really think it's a good idea. Um I think one thing that people have a problem with is the turbo boost. Like a lot of people don't like it because they feel like either they like anything they do early season doesn't matter because they can just wait till the very last boost, like the belt still has to come out. But they anything they do right now doesn't matter because like if you're trying to go for a title, it's just gonna go higher and higher, and or if they're raiding, the raid just gets easier and easier because we have too much gear now. Um, at first, I thought it was like a good idea to have a turbo boost because if you feel like you're stuck in like 17s or whatever, after the turbo boost comes out, you can just get ahead of that. Um, but at the same time, it was so much grinding. Like I probably did about like 100 keys across all my characters that week that turbo boost came out, and crest farming was like really insane. There was so much to do. And then yeah, so I have like a mixed opinion on the turbo boost and all these like extra like power that we're getting. I was wondering how you feel about them.
I'm a little mixed on it too. It does, you feel that huge difference with the turbo boost. I do understand why, like, the season is going to get stale if they're not giving us something exciting to do or to grind it out or whatever. But it does kind of like you said, it makes everything like it feels almost redundant to do it before that.
Yeah.
I also somewhat think, it's nice to do it when it's challenging because that gives you the opportunity. And this is coming back to the whole I like to constantly like I know that I spent a long time being a really bad player, like struggling in 15s back before the squish and stuff. I would right now, the group I used to play with, we'd be doing 8s to 10s, and I know a lot of people still don't even have their 10s, and I think that not like having the turbo boost is going to get them that opportunity to get it, but having the dungeons be a little bit more difficult to start gives them that opportunity, gives us that opportunity to really learn where everything's coming out, where the damage is happening, where we have to use our personal stuff, where you can have to pump, learning where the barrels are in the IPA room. Um, and then you get the turbo boost, and now it's all just easier, and all the fights, and you can really start pushing those goals that you want to make. But it does also kind of cheapen the experience a little bit in some ways.
Yeah,
So it's
pretty much feel the same. It's I think it just depends on the person. Like some people are always going to be motivated to push no matter what. So even before turbo boost, they're already grinding at it. and their mentality is more like, if we can do 17s now, we can do 18s when the turbo boost comes out. And then there are other people that are like, I just want to get title and quit. And those people are like, I'm just gonna come back end of season, gonna ask for people to help me with their resil keys. And there are people like that as well. So I guess it just kind of depends on the person. I think for M plus, it doesn't matter too much because we can always go higher in key level. But raid is really affected by this because you either have to front load all your prog and add more days to if you want to do it on more challenging content, or like if you only raid 2 days a week. I have my old guild that I used to raid with, and they would only raid 2 days a week, 6 hours a week, and that's it. And a lot of them are like having problems this season because they just don't feel as motivated. Because they feel like by the time they get to a certain boss, like they just killed Mugsy recently, but the Mugsy at like current state is way easier than it was like a month ago. So like I think for raiding guilds that like don't want to spend more time per week raiding, it does kind of suck for, and I don't know like exactly how they can fix this either, because at the same time they do want people to get more people to be able to get CE, right? So that's really good for people that for guilds that want to do that. But some guilds, they want to like challenge themselves more and do the content on hard mode. But I don't know, maybe like they could add a mode that scales, like for example, like mythic, heroic, but like they can scale their item level, like a challenge mode maybe for rating. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe. But
I like
yeah,
that idea.
yeah, that could be a thing. I don't know how they would implement it, but I do know for sure that like a lot of people were complaining about the 3% damage boost every week. That was already like making the content way easier than they would like. Um,
Hmm.
but yes, I think for Mythic Plus, it doesn't really affect us too much because we can just do a hierarchy. Rating, it gets affected more. Oh, speaking of rating, have you been rating at all like recently?
We started like a community raid at the start of the season, and it went okay. It was like half my streaming viewers, half pugs. And then over the last like few weeks, as everybody's starting to get like all their achievements, KSM and stuff, not KSM, ahead of the curve with like their guilds and stuff, I'm noticing people not coming to the raid and stuff as much. With the turbo boost, everyone's kind of burnt out on rating. I do see where you're coming from, that it
Yeah.
is affecting rating. After those came out, I haven't even gotten. Usually I pug in the first few weeks. I pug ahead of the curve, but I have not done that this time around yet. I need to do that still. No, the last 2 weeks ago, I was like, all right, Amy wants to come do this community raid, and like two people showed up. So it was like, okay, so I guess we're just done raiding for the season, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
So as someone who doesn't really raid much, how do you feel about the dinar system currently?
I'm glad that they gave us the opportunity to get the Mythic Plus trinkets on Mythic, but it does kind of stink that like I yes, I could drop one of my two Mythic Plus days to try and pug raid, but it's just not feasible for me to do raid. I just can't dedicate that time to it.
Yeah.
So it does kind of suck. Like I can't do Mythic Raid, but I really want to push Mythic Plus. So I think that the solve there is to give us better trinkets and stuff in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, for sure.
That are actually our best in slots for that.
My group is definitely feeling it too because we're trying to push like top keys, but at the same time, pretty much all of my DPS don't have Myth House of Cards and all the good trinkets like Moxie Jug. But like pretty much everyone else or most people that are doing keys at our level, they all either mythic raid or they have friends that like get them into just for like a free kill to get their dinar item. And I understand that like it's really nice for guilds that kill the boss once and then that's it. They just want to go for CE and they can just buy their item there. but it does really suck for like people who either can't commit time to raiding, or people who just don't enjoy raiding, or even like my mage currently, he raids on a shaman, so he can't even get his mage gear because his raiding character is a shaman. And he has to specifically convince his guild to let him in on mage. But yeah, like I think the NAR system is really nice. I think they just need to like make it better for M plus players, which they did add like M plus trinkets into the vendor, but the M plus trinkets this season are not nearly as good as the raid ones. So that's
I
the
think
only
that's pretty
problem.
traditional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last season Arakara Sackbrood was really good. So I guess it really depends on the season, but I think the mixture between like adding dinar for raiders only and making M plus trinkets not that good this season was what caused like a lot of people to complain about the system. I'm not even sure if like people would be complaining as much if M plus trinkets were just as good this season. Like that would people
Yeah.
would probably be okay with that. So there's that as well. And then another problem is like rating is just not as accessible to people who do keys because you need a guild for it. You can't just, I mean, you can maybe pug the first couple bosses on Mythic, but if all the bisque gear is on the last couple bosses, you definitely can't pug those. Yeah, versus like for raiders, if you just want to get your weekly vault, you can just like pug tens really easily. So there is an imbalance in that department, I guess. Um, but yeah, like it's for anyone that doesn't raid that wants to push keys, it really sucks. And
Mhm.
does anyone in your group play or raid at all?
No, I don't think any of them do raid. We all
Yeah,
just do keys.
definitely sucks. And do you guys ever feel like, oh man, if we had this much more gear, we would be able to do this part?
I think so. There's definitely some times we kind of a lot of our problems I think are like just we take turns making mistakes each dungeon, but so we're not quite up to those levels of like, oh, if we had this gear, but there are definitely times where it's like if we had some of our best in slots, like this could have died faster or
Yeah,
whatever helped out a little bit.
for sure. Okay, so now I want to talk like a little more about pug healing because I know you probably have more experience than I do with pugs. Um, so how do you like normally heal an encounter where you can't like tell people when to use defensives?
I I kind of I've gotten used to like the different levels you're going to find the different experiences. So if I'm going to go back and heal a 12, I'm going to assume that most people in that 12 aren't actively using their defensives and they're not going to know when to throw down their like darkness and AMZ and stuff. They're going to a lot of their defensives and things are going to come after the damage is already stopped. Which is something that you see a lot in like eights to I would say even up to 13s, 14s. You're gonna find people who are using their defensives after the damage is stopped. Um, and you don't have that way of communicating. You're right about that. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm chilling in Discord with this. If I'm pugging to somebody else, with a friend, I'm like, hey, we're chilling in Discord. If anybody wants to come in, um, and I offer that up, which is another way I kind of promote my stream because if they're in my Discord, then they're gonna see that I have a going live channel and stuff.
Yeah,
If they look at the Discord, or they're gonna get pinged if I go live, which is nice. A nice little way to promote your stream a little bit, without actively promoting your stream. But in the hierarchies, it it catches on pretty quick. How fast your DPS and your tank and everybody's going to use their defensives and externals and stuff, and who all they're going to use it on. You're going to find that you're going to find a lot of paladins who are not like sacking somebody if they use bubble or something, or sometimes you're going to find paladins who are every time they use bubble they're sacking somebody with a dot on them or something. And you can usually, if you're watching their defensives and stuff, pick that up fairly quick and see like how much they're going to need. um I would say it's a little bit of a fine-tuned thing. I guess. It took experience. It was hard for a while. I definitely failed some healing checks, assuming that people would like hit defensives and stuff.
Yeah.
Now I just assume they don't, and when they are hitting them, I kind of back off a little bit. If I have a DH and DK in a 17, you're gonna bet that the first AoE phase of every encounter, you're gonna have both AMZ and darkness at the same time, and I don't pop anything. I'm like, nope, that was you guys. I'll just chain heal a little bit.
Yeah, same. I think I definitely experienced that as well. People tend to always use their defensive on the very first set of every damage event. It's just like an instinct thing. Like people just say, "Oh, I have a defensive AoE incoming. I'm gonna use it." I think that's just always what happens in pugs. So yeah, I agree. Like I definitely don't use anything on the very first set. Um, but yeah, like that's really interesting to hear from you because I feel like your view of like people 13s and lower are some of the things that like people I play with still do. Like they still panic and um not use their defensives until like after they take the damage because they're like, oh shoot, I just took some damage. I'm gonna like pop my wall. And then I think the thing that bothers me the most is after a mage takes like a ton of damage, they finally use their ice cold. And then I'm like, no, that is your biggest defensive. I can't have you throw that away right now.
Yeah.
Um, or some mages like they don't alter time until they're like kind of low, and I'm like, you could have altered timed before when you were full HP.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, and a lot
At
of
least like
and
okay.
the mage that I play with currently, he was actually shaman main last season, and he just didn't play mage until like a month ago. So it took him a while to like learn how to use alter time, and I think mage defensives are just like kind of interesting. It's kind of hard to learn if you're just starting. But yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I think one that gets me is when they do their AoE barrier after all the damage is like an AoE attack goes out, like a shout or something, and then they use the barrier after, and you're just like, okay, 2 minutes before. And that's something that I've had with my personal group, is that we've always been in keys where you're not having to necessarily use that, and their defenses are more like an oh shoot like reaction as opposed to a like proactive thing. And I've gotten the weak aura now that like shows me when things are about to go on certain people, and I'm like, hey, player, use a defensive right now, and I try to call it out and teach them. I've also kind of been like, this is gonna hurt, use a defensive. And if they don't use a defensive and I know it won't kill them necessarily in lower keys, I let them get kind of low to like teach them what's hurting them. And I know it sounds like really crappy, but I feel like that's kind of the homework key thing. I'm like, I'm not gonna let them die, but I'm gonna let them get a little bit lower so they can learn a little bit what's gonna hurt in the higher keys. I feel like that's one benefit to me going and pugging into 17s and then going back and doing like 14s and 15s with them is that I know like kind of what's gonna kill them and what's not
Yeah,
in a 14 versus 17.
yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the things that you have to teach people, which I also do, like I also have to tell them, well, actually, this doesn't hurt as much, so you don't need to use your big defensive here. You gotta save it for the next thing. I think it's because DPS players typically don't heal, and you pretty much some of these things, like you kind of just have to play a healer to really understand when your healer needs help the most. Like on Candle King, I can only call for defensives, but if I don't call anything, they're just going to assume like, oh, I'm low, I gotta pop something when the damage was already done. Like after the circles are cleared, I can heal it off. I need you to pop stuff when the damage is going on. But I think people who don't heal, they're just not going to understand no matter like what key level it is. Like even in 18s, 19s, people still make that mistake. And I don't really know what the best solution is, except like kind of scripting it for people and telling them exactly what to do. Because outside of if they actually learn to heal and figure it out, they're not going to know. They're not going to like. And also, every healer is different. Like for a shaman, like when you have Spirit Link, you're just really strong and you don't really need much help, right? But for a Disc
Yeah.
Priest, like it's more like I have these 4 premonitions, and then one of them is weak, 2 of them are like okay, and then one of them is very strong. I can't really tell them, okay, I have premonition of clairvoyance. I'm really strong right now. I don't need you to pop anything. Like, they're just not going to understand. So I kind of just either have to like hold my cooldowns. Like if I'm in a pug, and I have clairvoyance, which is my biggest premonition, I will just hold it if I see other people popping their own stuff. But if I see no one's popping anything, then okay, I'm just gonna spend this right now. So it's more like reactive in pugs, I guess. But
And
with
then
the
as soon as you spend it, they're gonna use their
oh yeah,
defensives.
of course. Hmm. um, I think as Oracle, it is definitely easier to play more reactively, which is what I try to do in pugs. So like sometimes I would let like one tick go off to see if someone they would pop something, and then keep healing after. As last season as Void Weaver, I couldn't do that as much because it was more like predictive, and you basically like need to ramp on time or you won't have the healing. That's what I like about Oracle because I can pre-shield people, let them take like a tick of damage, and then if they don't use defensives, I'll just use my own stuff. And then if they do, then I still have time to hold my stuff. I guess for Shaman, it kind of works out like that as well. It's less like ramp kind of healing and more reactive.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, for sure. Um, oh, and speaking of tracking cooldowns, how do you feel about them like removing add-ons and not allowing you to heal predict or track CDs anymore?
That is going to make pugging so unless they start adding that in for us to be able to do it with the base UI. If I can't track people's cooldowns, and that's something that I always have told, like when people come into the stream and they're like, "What kind of advice can you give?" And I'm like, "Well, track your players' cooldowns, get to know them, figure out like what's going to help and everything." And without being able to track those things, it's definitely going to make it more difficult. You're going to waste a lot more of your healing cooldowns, trying to keep people alive, or people are going to die, without the communication because you're you're not going to have your cooldowns because you'll have spent them when they spend their cooldowns.
Yeah, it definitely sucks for healers. I know a lot of people are like really happy about it because they're like, aha, all the higher players can't use weak auras to play the game anymore. But I think a lot of people saying that are not healer mains. I think it's
Yeah.
mostly healers that like have an issue with that. I know they have like a cooldown manager or whatever coming out, but I'm not sure if that's going to be as good as Omni CD, which is what I use right now, and weak auras. Like that's gonna be
Mhm.
rough for them to like come up with a system or their base default UI that is as good as the add-ons are currently. Like on the brights.
I played a
Go ahead. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I played around with their current like cooldown manager, and it's currently not great.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It looks like they're trying to kind of copy the Lucthos weak auras, which are the ones I actually use. I'm lazy and I really like how simple his are to like input.
Yeah.
Um and so I use his and he's Omni CD, and I just feel like their base UI one does not meet up at all with what it's not customizable. It looks clunky. It's not great.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of expected, and I think that's a problem people have. Like they just, I think Blizzard has never like shown people that they can deliver something very nice. I mean, I guess their default UI ever since Dragonflight has been a lot better than before. So there is improvements, but there's got to be like a lot more improvement for it to be good enough for people to be satisfied with. Um, I mean, on the bright side, I think like less FPS drops will be nice. Like if you don't have that many weak auras and add-ons running, it'll be better. But I think as a healer, I'm most concerned about whether like the things replacing the current UI is going to be good. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also for pugging, do you feel like you don't get into keys as easily as meta, like as non-meta?
I sat there for hours and hours at the start of the season, just like queuing up. I would have all 12s done and get denied to 10s for disc priests. And I'm just like, you guys
Plus
realize you don't
10s.
need meta at these levels, like 10s to 12s to 13s, 14s. Like, you don't need meta. Like, you don't even in the higher, you can get, it's harder, but you can get into title range without being an all meta group. And I try to like, yes, to answer your question, yes. I do see when it's harder, and I could feel when shaman is not the meta.
So how do you normally deal with that? Like if you can't get in the keys?
I try to push my own key, which is what I recommend for a lot of people. But I also, it's not always a thing. I know that there's a lot of people. I even have a close friend of mine who I'm always like, push your key, push your key. Like, I can't play when you're playing because of my work, so push your key, and I'll support you. I'll cheer you on because she's a streamer and stuff. And she's like, I'm really just anxious to put my key in and find the people. Like, what if I grab all the wrong people and stuff? And she doesn't do higher keys, you know. She doesn't. I don't think she currently has her tens done because she's too anxious to like get into those pug keys and stuff. And it's just like you're not going to get that experience if you don't at least put yours in. You're not going to get invited if you're not showing it. But otherwise, I just try and go back to in the past, I've added people and I'm always like, "Hey, want to do keys?" And I try and like find people who have kind of keys around my level and be like, "Let's do keys and see what they have," and be like, "So can we run yours?" Like,
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think I do that a lot as well. I also play like a bunch of healers that aren't meta even when something else is meta that I'm pushing on. And then I always tell people to run their own keys. That's pretty much the only way I can get in the keys on either a character that isn't high enough IO or a character that isn't meta. And it kind of sucks. Like there is pretty much every spec in title range currently, so you definitely don't need to be meta two time these keys. But unfortunately, that is just reality. And I don't know. I try to tell people like it's just like so much easier to play the game if you run your own keys, even if it feels like it's not working out. Like I have a friend named Venerea. He's a hunter main. Not sure if you know him, but he's also a
I
streamer.
think I know that name.
Yeah, he's an MM
Yeah.
hunter main. He is known for like bricking pug keys, like bricking his own key in pugs. Like, he always lists his key, and it always gets bricked down. And last season it was even worse because there were no resil keys. So he would have like a 16, and it would go all the way down to like an 11, because each time you brick your key, your key gets lower, and then you don't have as good applicants sign up to them. So it can happen where like every key that you brick, it gets harder and harder. Even though it's a lower key
Yeah.
level, you're playing with people that are worse. So there's that as well. Like sometimes it can happen, but that's what I like about resil keys now. Because if you're like solo pugging and you can't get in the keys, and you feel anxious running your own key, at least like if you have resil keys, you can put that pressure off of yourself and be less stressed about it. So that's definitely a lot more helpful. Do you have any other advice for people who want to try healing in pugs but are kind of scared?
Anytime somebody asks me that, I do tell them, don't hold your cooldowns. That was a mistake I used to make. I would save my cooldowns thinking, oh, we're gonna need it for the boss. And you're not expecting your DPS to hold their 2 to 3 minute cooldowns, so you shouldn't be holding yours. If it's needed, use it. Um, Sit and drink mana, even if you're at 70%, because you're gonna need it. Emotionally, it just takes practice, and you just got to kind of shrug off the toxicity. There's going to be people who don't understand if they stood in something and died, or I've seen people get hit by melee and be like, I wasn't healed. And I'm like, but the tank didn't taunt. It's just,
Yeah,
you just got to brush it off.
for sure. I'm glad you mentioned the mental part because a lot of people have problems with like ranked anxiety. Like they're just scared to queue in or scared to like deal with toxic stuff. What's the most toxic thing you've ever dealt with in a pug?
Okay, last season, what was it? Old War, the one where we drove flowing the dragons to kill some of the trash in the hall.
Is it
Um,
Dawnbreaker?
no, it was. I think it was just last season or the season.
Oh wait, was
Maybe
it
maybe it was last expansion.
Dragonflight?
It was an old dungeon that came back. Um,
Oh,
God, I'm blanking
was
on the
it Grim
name. I'm
Batol?
horrible with names. Maybe, yeah, and we were, like, almost to the 3rd boss, which is, like, you get the 3rd boss and you get the last boss, just, like, back to back basically with 1 or 2 pack pulls in between, and we were gonna time it, and it was one I needed for IO, and the, 1 DP there was 1 DPS who was a pug, and the tank and I both ran out with a circle on us, and the tank, like, ran over me, and it killed me.
Oof.
And the DPS and this I mean, no, I've seen, like, worse toxic stuff, but this one kinda sticks with me. And the DPS this is the 2nd time it happened, so I died twice the tank putting the circle over me. And the DPS said, "I'm not carrying this healer," and left our timeable key, my timeable key, and I was just like, "I worked so hard to push this up, and it was so disappointing," and it was like, we literally have a chance to time this still, like, it was on stream, everyone in chat was like, "Report this guy," because we were well into, like, the timing it area, so it was just incredibly disappointing, and of course, I've probably seen much more toxic stuff, I'm pretty quick the block button, I had a lot of toxicity. I've seen a lot of toxicity in the past and stuff, and I just don't deal with it anymore. I don't have the patience for it or the time for it. Honestly, you're not going to be able to say or do anything that's going to change a person's mind. That's actually incorrect. One time I was helping a friend to get a 20 um in Everbloom, and it was gonna be her first 20 of the season, and her damage was kinda low, but either way, it was the end of the season, it was very timeable key, and we did time it, and this warlock was going off on her damage and stuff, and it was just, like, being so toxic to her, and I was like, "You're talking a lot of smack for someone who has not once hit," and I named off all of his defensives, and I was like, "You are an incredibly hard warlock to heal, like, you need to just focus on that and not on her, we're gonna time this key either way," and at the very end of the key, he DM'd her and told her that he was sorry for going off about her damage and that he was in the wrong, so for the 99% of the time, you're not going to change a toxic person, but there is that 1% that if you do feel like speaking up, right, you can change their mind. And it was my key. We timed it, and I was absolutely right. He was one of the hardest warlocks I'd ever healed. Like kept burning rush on the whole time, didn't use defensives, and we did just fine.
Oh my
So
gosh, burning rush the whole time. That reminds me of there's this one warlock I played with back in Dragonflight in a pug. I saw him like a couple times. Like he was in a couple of the same pugs I was in. But his name was like Trackstar or something, and he would only leave burning rush on. Like it was part of his RP. And I was like, during the healing intensive fight, I was like, please turn it off. But like, no, he just needs to have it on. Who cares? Healer, just heal me. But yeah, like that just you just unlocked a memory for me there. Um, but yeah, I definitely like resonate with that. Although I think like, do you think it's because you timed the key that that person changed, or like did they actually
I think
change?
it's a big part that we timed the key. Had we not timed the key, they might have not DM'd her
Yeah,
later, and it was so funny because she posted it and everything, and I think it's because we timed the key, and maybe I'd like to think we all joke about it, like everyone that was in the key, he was the only pug, and so we all joke about how I, being spoken up for changed his tune a little bit, like made him realize, oh well, someone else is defending them. So I feel like a lot of times nowadays in the last couple seasons when there has been issues and one DPS starts to like blame the healer, I've found a lot of pugs are sticking up for me and they're like, dude, you've not hit these cooldowns once, blah blah blah, and they start like linking logs and stuff like the uh damage charts and stuff, and they're like, you have no interrupts, your damage is poor, and like every time I've been getting blamed in the last couple seasons, everyone else is like the other pugs have been coming back and like defending me, which has like brought back my faith in the community that maybe it's not as bad for healers for the most part, and that it's more that in the lower keys you're going to find people who are unsure as to like whether or not it's the healer's fault,
yeah,
and not know to like speak up for the healer and stuff. A healer's just a scapegoat. It's definitely a scapegoat position. It's very easy to get blamed, and you just block them. It's not worth the stress. You're probably doing fine. You can figure out where you need to improve, but the way that they come across it, you're probably doing fine.
yeah, for sure. And like a lot of people in lower keys, I realized or I noticed, they blame the healer because they think everything needs a healer to save them. Like defensive don't exist, not the kicks don't exist. Like if there's damage going out, you're healing me, and I think that's like a common misconception because recently we timed a was it 19 theater but on Zav I think I had hit my fade, which we're ignoring all the banners, so we're always perma slowed. So I was trying to fade to remove my root, but for some reason it didn't go off and I just died. And for half the whole boss on a 19, we didn't have a healer and we killed it. And that's because we had a mage that I would call their alter time since I was on the floor. I was like calling everyone's defensives. But the mage would alter time every time the AoE went off. There was no other damage going out. The Broomy could just frenzy regen every time, and then the Death Knight could just Death Strike. So all three of them could just live literally without a healer on a 19. And there are so many fights like that where I thought like, oh, I'm dead. It's over. Like we're just dead. There's no healer alive, but we actually survived. So that just goes to show like you don't need a healer a lot of the time, and you can just deal with it if you're good enough. So
You just unlocked a memory for me.
Okay, go ahead. I want to hear it.
On that specific fight, like 3 weeks ago, we were doing it. It was like a 16, maybe 15 or 16, and one of the DPS complained because they had to use their health pot on that fight, and it was like, you do realize that like he jumps and does that damage at one time, and then I heal you up, and he jumped and they immediately used their health pot because they saw their health get low, and it was like there's no rot damage or anything. Like that's the only damage that healers have to do here.
Yeah.
So you could have done anything else or just waited 2 seconds for my chain heal to hit you.
Exactly. And that's like a problem that happens everywhere. Like people just don't think about the fact that like sometimes you don't always need to be topped. Like if there's nothing dangerous, you can just wait for the healer to top you. And that even happens in my own group when sometimes people are like, oh, I'm low right now, I need more healing. And I'm always like, I will heal you up. I know when the next damage is coming up. Don't worry, you'll get topped. And if I can't top you, I'll tell you. So that happens. Like, thankfully, I'm in a group and people are like listening to my comms and stuff. But if they were in a pug and they were panicking and they can't talk to the healer, they might have like used their defensives early or potted early when they didn't need to. So yeah, I think it's just like a misunderstanding sometimes of like, sometimes you don't need to be 100% topped all the time. And that also saves a healer a lot of mana if they don't have to like always top you the entire time. Like they could be wasting stuff when they could be doing more damage, or they could have their heal over time heal you up. Because as long as you're top before the next mechanic goes out, you're good. And that reminds me of like there was this one low key I did. I think it was like an 8 or something last season, and I remember there was like nothing to heal pretty much, and like I had so much time to top people, but there was this mage that was like really rude for like no reason, and mid key he like left, even though it was like completely timeable. It was a +8 and it was like kind of late into the season, and he was like, this healer doesn't heal as much as the tank. I can't believe it. You suck. And it was like a dungeon that didn't even require that much healing. And I'm like, what am I healing? Like, there's nothing to heal.
Exactly.
And they were like, your HPS is lower than the tanks, so you must be carried. You must be carried. You must be bad. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, they just, some of these DPS, they just don't understand. And I don't know if it's like, obviously it's his fault for being toxic, but maybe he's like not knowledgeable. But like tanks heal a lot. Like tanks have a lot of self-healing. They're probably taking more damage than DPS most of the time. So like obviously their healing is high, but like it just surprises me like how many people just don't really understand how healing works. I still get people ask me like, how much HPS should I be doing in a 15? And I'm like, well, that depends on the key. That depends on who you're playing with, what classes. It depends on like if people are good pressing defensives, if they're not good, not pressing defensives. And like the general rule is if you can keep your team alive and you survive the fight, then you're doing enough healing. And if not, you might still be doing enough healing and your DPS are just not pressing their defensives. But like it's just so situational, which is why like it's really hard to really be like one dimensional about how to get better at healing. But if yeah, that's why like people stream and people watch healer streams, and that's why I try to do like more commentary videos on like how I heal keys and how I think about it. But there's so many things that are just situational. I wonder if you get those comments as well, like asking about HPS and stuff.
I don't think I've actually recently. I can't think of a time that I've been directly asked about HPS. Thankfully, but I do agree with you that you can't really answer that. I'm like, I don't know, like anywhere between 1 million to 3 million, depending on the group or the dungeon.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
definitely is easier to say DPS wise, like what healers can do and what DPS should be doing. Um, but it's funny because we joke a lot about it because if one of the DPS takes accidental damage in my group, they'll joke, they're saying, "Oh, we're helping Bella's parse." And I'm always like, "Oh, thank you guys for making yourselves look worse so that I can look better." And that's exactly that. Like the better the healer looks, typically the worse the group was.
Yeah.
Like not saying that they're bad players, but maybe there was just like the higher your parse, unless you're like in the top title range and stuff and you're the one setting the parses or whatever, like in the lower keys and stuff, if you got the highest parses, it means that your team wasn't playing great.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, people like blaming healers like that. I don't really know how to go against it other than like kind of just have to ignore them. Like you can try to explain to them, but like aside from that, you
Did
can't
you
really.
die?
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, if you didn't die, you're good. I don't
Yeah.
know. And then last thing I have for you is I was wondering how you feel about community keys because I've seen you like helping people get KSM and stuff. Like I was wondering how that experience is.
Yeah, I haven't done it so much this season as much as I would have loved to. Actually, I'm actually doing it this Friday, the 13th. I'll be doing community keys all night. I took off of work and we're gonna it's my partner celebration. Sorry. And I'm really excited about
Oh,
that. We're
don't
gonna be
need to
doing just community
apologize.
keys. So it's like
You're
I'm
good.
not trying to like totally plug right here.
This podcast is
But
plugging you, so you're good.
okay. Yeah, so for the partner celebration, we're doing just community keys like all night. And um I'm excited because I've got a couple people that I know are going to help, but that's where I see both myself and like Hydrax and Provost I've seen and helped do community keys. Sometimes it's just finding like making sure that you have that core group that can kind of carry if someone is definitely a carry. But I find them a lot of fun, and I find that people who are coming into those keys, you're gonna get a mix of ones who are just like hoping to get carried, but you're gonna sometimes find those people who are actually wanting to learn the dungeons and improve, and they're just too scared to get out into pugs and stuff. But I think it's great. I love it, and I do wish that they had like a way of lowering resilient keys, even if it's for like your alts or like once you get resilient keys, if it's unlocked under 12s, like
Yeah.
um I really think that even eights and tens should be resilient. And I know a lot of the community might disagree with me on that, but I feel like we need to be helping more than just the 1% of people who do have those higher resilient keys.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it makes even more sense to make lower keys resilient because like people at that level aren't trying to push for score. Like they're just trying to get their weekly portals or they're just trying to get KSM or their vaults. Like they're not really there to like
Yeah.
do the Mythic Plus like competitive scene. So it just makes more sense to make all keys below 12 resilient.
Mhm. Yeah. And even unlock them at eights or tens or something as opposed to having to get 12s because pugging at those levels suck.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Like you said, someone left because they don't understand the healing chart. I much prefer pugging 15s to 17s right now than I would hate to take my alts into 8s to 12s.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I'm like curious because like I've been thinking about doing community keys myself, but I was wondering like if you ever get people that like aren't very nice, or like they kind of just join and then don't really have a good spirit, or is your community all just like very nice?
Had toxicity in my community before. We had a situation a couple years ago, and everyone, I always would let people in voice, and I had like a really high, and I'm not going to say any names, but it was a higher IO player, a title range player who was helping, who came in to help with the key from my stream, and it was someone else, and then a friend, and there was like a miscommunication over and a like they were talking about two different things. So what like the high IO player was talking about, what the player who was able to like achieve 20s and stuff was talking about, were two totally different things. It was miscommunication, and he went through and clipped that part of my stream and shared it. And by the time I saw the clip of them arguing and him criticizing my friend, um, it had already had thousands of views in like a day. And I
Oh
was
my
like, "Who
gosh.
did you share this with? Like, what the heck?" So I had to like ban this person, delete the clip and everything. I was mortified personally. That was like the one of the most toxic things I'd ever seen. And I was also mortified for like my friend and stuff. But it really made me realize that I have to be way more cautious about like the toxicity, and be like, all right guys, if we're gonna like be having arguments, like if even if you're my friends, like if you're gonna be argumentative in voice chat, like we're not gonna allow you back in voice chat. And I locked it down, and I don't let a lot of people in now, or sometimes I'll let people in because there is that toxicity still in some areas. And so my mods are just amazing, and they're really fast to shut that stuff down. I'm nice. I'm like, I'll let people get away with stuff way too much. And my mods, like I have one mod who she'll like not say much, and then just out of the blue, someone who's in like kind of saying like the most obscure stuff, making me feel awkward for like 20, 30 minutes. They're just banned, and I don't even see them get banned. And then she's like, "We're good." And I'm like, "Wait, what just happened?" She's like, "No, because I could tell that person was like actively making you like feel uncomfortable. They were borderline toxic, like they're gone." And I'm just like, cool, you've got my back. So definitely with community keys, mods like make all the difference. And I think Acid K, she does community keys and community raid. And I think that her mods also play kind of the bad guy for her. Like if people like aren't doing well, if they're causing them to like not progress and stuff, I think that her mods will like ask them to take a seat for the next fight and stuff for her.
That's
So that
definitely
that
what I
helps a
need.
lot. Yes.
I'm always too nice, and I've had people like put me in uncomfortable positions, and I'm always like kind of still interacting with them because I'm feeling awkward. And then I don't really have any mods except for my husband, but he always like he acts as a bad guy for me pretty much, and he's always done that pretty much. Even when we were running a guild back then in classic WoW, he would always like um either kick people when they weren't being good, or like he would encourage me to like do something about it, because I always like let things go and try to like make peace with everything. But sometimes you just have to like have boundaries, and you just have to
Yeah.
like set it and make sure you enforce it, which is something I'm still working on. But yeah, that's really good
Yeah.
advice. Getting
I
mods.
always DM people first. And I'm like, "Hey, so how can I help you? Like what's going on that you're dying on every pull, or that like your healing in this raid or whatever is so low, or like your damage is, you know, under 1 million and it should be at 3 million for this dungeon. Like how can I help you do better?" And I actually think that the damage thing is going to improve with the one button. I think a lot of people who are struggling with that. I'm hoping that people can get their 10s and possibly even 12s with the one button, but that's but I always try and like ask people like, how can I help you? Like, can I help you go through logs and stuff or something? And I kind of stretch myself thin sometimes, like offering to help, but it's something that I want to give back to the community that has given a lot to me.
Yeah, that's really nice, and we definitely need more people like you, because there are definitely. I think WoW is just not really a noob friendly game. Like it's really hard to get into the game, and if I didn't have at least like WoW classic knowledge, or at least my husband getting me into the game, I don't even know if I would be able to handle it because there's just so many add-ons you have to deal with. You have to like, there's so many guides out there that like you get overwhelmed if you don't even know what you're doing. So definitely helps to like have people like you in the community to try and help the new players get better. And I think a lot of the um, lower community, they just think like all the higher players are like elitist and toxic, but that's not really the case. There are definitely people who will help, and I think we need more people like that as well, so that the other people don't think that about us. And that's what I'm also trying to do. That's what you're trying to do, and I'm glad that more people in the community are coming out and trying to help these newer players, and genuinely like trying to help, not just like being toxic about it and being more patient about it. That's definitely what we need. And I wish I had that when I first started playing as well.
I had when I spent a lot of time. I've been playing this game 10 plus years now, and I still get overwhelmed with all the add-ons and all the stuff coming out. I'm always
Yeah.
like, help me, and I'm always asking my friends to help. Um but yeah, I totally just lost track of where I was going with that. But wow, I lost track of where I was going with that. I
No,
was
you're
just
good.
saying I was overwhelmed.
From
And
getting into the game.
yeah, getting into the game, I it took me a long time. It like I gotta admit, like when I saw that like you had just started and then you were like already getting title, and I was jealous. I was like, this just seemed to come so naturally to her, and I spent many seasons just learning Mythic Plus and getting to where I am, many expansions, and you cannot compare yourself in this game because the great thing about World of Warcraft is that there's so many different options and so many different routes, and what works for one person isn't going to work for everyone else. And you have to remember that. So I would I look up to you for like how fast you started getting title and stuff
Oh,
and got
thank
into
you.
your teams and everything.
Yeah, that's funny because like I know a lot of people like look up to me and say, "Oh wow, she got a title her first season," but like I see other people and I don't know, like it's I just can't help it but like look at people above me. So even though like there are people that think I'm good, I still look at other people. Like I know this friend who's like higher than me currently, and he started playing in like season 4 Dragonflight, which is a season later than me, so I still compare myself to other people who have been playing less than me or have been like playing with better players or have better opportunities because they get to meet more people.
Yeah.
But like it's just really you're just never going to be happy with yourself if you compare to other people. Like everyone goes at their own pace, and like even though you may think I am doing really well for like when I started, I mean, I was playing the game like all day versus like you only have like 2 or 3 days a week to play, and you only have like a limited amount of time to spend. I was like I would like sit in queue for like hours if I had to because I had the time. So my situation was like really different from yours and anyone else's. Like someone might have even more time than I do to play the game, and I know I think I was like really jealous of, was it Rain, because I saw that he was in like a physical comp and he was having so much fun. And they were doing like smaller polls because their like physical comp just has AoE cap, so they have to do like smaller polls. And I was jealous of that because I had to play with my meta comp, which is nice, but at the same time, our strats take a lot to execute since we're pulling like big, like we're pulling like half the room in the first pull of Cinderbrew. And when we first started doing that, it was really rough. Like we're doing 3 hard muscles at the heal through that. And then some other places like Theater of Pain, we had to like snap mobs everywhere. And there were just so many things that we had to practice, and I was jealous that like physical comps could just do their like one pull at a time and still time keys. But I mean, I don't know what goes behind the scenes for them. Like maybe it's really hard for brewmasters to live on some bosses, and maybe it's harder for their comp to live some other things. So there's so many different things you can compare to and make yourself feel worse about. But the best thing is to just, I mean, like you said, I definitely agree. You just can't compare yourself. It'll always make you feel worse. for sure.
Just be proud of where you've gotten with whatever time and resources you have, and do your best to do better if that's what you achieve or want to do. I believe everybody has it in them if they want to get to those levels. I do. I think that anybody who wants to get there and is willing to put in that work and learn everything has that ability to. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of if that's priority to you or not.
And that's a better mentality to go at it as well. Instead of just like looking down on yourself and always like not believing in yourself. Like that's not going to get you anywhere. You got to always like encourage yourself and be proud of where you came from, and always look at where you can improve instead of constantly trying to compare to others. I mean, you can compare it in like a good way where like, oh, they're doing this and I should be doing this more. Like that's a good comparison, but like comparing in the way that like makes it toxic is definitely not good. And I feel like that's still really hard, even though I'm giving advice like that. Like I still
Yeah.
deal with it as well. So yeah, it's really hard, and I'm still working on it myself as well. All right. Before we wrap it up, do you have any last minute comments you wanted to make?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we talked about a lot today. um, at first I thought like, oh, it's gonna be really different talking to you because you come from like such a different background. You play like maybe half the amount that I play, and you're not playing meta and all that stuff. And I thought we were gonna be really different, but it turns out like we relate to a lot of different things, and we have a lot in common. We're still part of the same community, and we basically like went through similar experiences in both plugging and in groups. So it
Yeah.
was really nice. I'm really glad I got to talk to you. I hope we get to talk more outside of this podcast. Maybe we get to play together at some point because I also play other roles as well. We'll see.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking me to come on here. It was a big honor to be able to do the podcast with you. And yeah, it was really cool getting to know you and knowing that we do have a lot of that similar story.
For sure. All right. And where can we find you on social media?
Krystalbella on Twitch or Krystalbella TTV or TV anywhere else. Yeah,
Sounds good. Thank you
I'm
once
on
again.
everywhere.
Thank you
Thank
once
you.
again for coming onto the podcast. Appreciate it. And yeah, hope you have a nice rest of the season.
You too. Thank you.
Bye, guys.